I think this is working. Hello, Facebook. I think it's working. I don't know. Maybe somebody's listening. Maybe somebody's seeing this. I don't know. Phone's a little crooked. It told me at the last second it couldn't be up. And of course, now it's being difficult. But, you know, we do what we can. We'll see what happens here. What we can is not going well. But it'll go anyway. Anyway, hello, Steve Patterson. This is right outside of my house. I live just about 50 yards that way. And this is what it looks like in every direction around me. So this is where I spend a lot of my time. I take a lot of pictures. You might have seen some of these pictures. You know, continuing the ongoing conversation that's taking place on social media about all that's going on in the world right now and how we navigate all of that. Something that I talk a lot about, and I have videos on YouTube about from January and February talking about these things around power and force. And a lot of this does come from the framework established by David Hawkins back in the 90s, in which he connected the mind-body experience with power and force, which is the energy that is available throughout the entire universe, all the available energy, and what level of energy the experience is on, and how to navigate those spaces. I'll get to that in a second. But so that's, you'll hear a lot of the language I use is from there, just because simply he is the sort of state of the art still of that, because his approach was so encompassing and it was accepted by both the esoteric community as well as the scientific community. So it's kind of unique in that way, and it spurred a lot of additional thought in the last 25, 30 years, whatever it's been. But so how can that kind of stuff help us right now? You know, there's people all over the place doing stuff just like this. And by the way, I see questions, or not questions, but I see people joining. I may or may not be able to see that because I don't have my glasses on, but I do now. So anyway, I'll try to say hello to everybody. Hello, Turlock. Hello, Shelly and Deborah. Anyway, and Turlock Kelly. So anyway, back to the story. Why would we listen to another thing about how to navigate this? There's so much information out there. And that's part of the thing, is there's so much information out there. And when we are attracted to certain things, what are called attractors in nonlinear dynamics, things that make us do things that are otherwise unexplainable, that is dependent on the energy fields in which we're attracted to. Lower the energy, higher the energy, more power. Lower the energy, low energy. To live, you need energy, you need power. So if you're attracted to those lower energy things, fear, anger, all these other places we'll get to in a second, it puts your mindset there, and that's your relative level of consciousness. And so if you get stuck in that, you're operating in a state of lower consciousness as it is described in human behavior. And so that's not good. Your life is not happy and things of that nature. So how do you avoid getting into those situations in the first place? And to really briefly mention another person, Lujan Matus in his book years ago wrote about seeing, knowing, and doing, and the seeing and knowing and not doing. So in other words, that's sort of a self-check where you get used to in the course of your life seeing something, you know something about it, and then you do whatever that thing is that you believe. You know, in this instance, you could say, I see there's trouble in the world, I want to know more, and I'll watch the news. Okay, that watch the news part. Then there's the seeing and knowing and not doing, which, you know, again, now we're in a random space of things that aren't the same. Right now, the world is not the same. So maybe that traditional thing of seeing, knowing, and doing, where you see trouble in the world, you go to the news, you get news. And that's the energy you're getting. We'll get back to that in a second. But on this other hand, you could see problem in the world, know, you want to find out more, and not do that, and maybe explore the options of social media right now, where you have people talking face to face like this in a different kind of way that we've really never had in the human experience, with so many people globally thinking about the same thing at the same time. And that's a really huge and seminal point right there in our existence as a species, that some people are talking about in ways that point out the opportunity here, as opposed to jumping right back into the way things were. You know, we talk a lot about that. I've mentioned that in posts and other videos. The other day I did one. This is day 18 of shelter in place. On day 9, and the only way I know that is because I said day 9 in the title, and I had a whole thing about what I just talked about as far as how to use this time. But back to power and force. When you get to the point of now things are so different, your seeing and knowing and doing could also change. So maybe you do investigate some of the stories that are on Facebook, or the actual person that's living on the ground in one of these hotspots, and they tell their story from a first-hand thing instead of a reporter telling you somebody else's story. You know, just maybe audit that a little bit. Doesn't mean you have to get attached to everything out there. And also, this can now lead to another negative thing itself, which we'll get to, is the news. So say in the seeing and knowing and doing, You want to, you know there's a problem in the world, it's very serious. You know you need to do something about it. What can I do? It's going to lead to possibly death, right? So death, boom, emotional response right there. You're attracted to that. That's fundamentally a negative experience, aside from any spiritual reborn and death process. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fear of actually human dying and what that does to the human when they hear that word, which I've been told, which I've talked about a lot as well, when they put a date, more or less, on your death. But that's sort of what's going on right now with a lot of people, because yes, this virus is real, as they believe, and yes, they could get it at any time, and it kills a lot of people. So I want to know how many people it kills. Well, I look and I see the news and it says a number, or I look in the paper, I look in the AP, see a number. Okay, that tells me the information I need. Now, what am I going to do now? Am I going to keep doing that? Do I need to see pictures out of some hospital of some guy that's horribly sick? Do I need to look at all the pictures of what's going wrong to further illustrate to me that it is not something I want? I mean, I've already arrived at that, but yet now I've done something where I've become attached to an outcome of death. And you're validating that over and over again by staying in that negative space of following that negative energy of death, as opposed to seeing it maybe, seeing, yes, there's this thing going on, knowing I should find out something to keep my hands clean or whatever's going on, and then, doing that. Or yes, I might die. There's a chance I could get sick and die. Yes, right now, freaking rock from space could fall on my head for all I know. But yes, this is different and serious. But do I need to know anything beyond the fact that it could kill me? Do I need to be told that over and over and over again? Do I need to watch every single update? Do I need to tune in to watch every 5 o'clock press conference from Washington, D.C. to tell me whatever the heck they're saying? Because that in and of itself is a cluster F. I'll be good on this video and not swear because I'm live. So anyway, so that there you have what would be an attraction to negative energy, and then also being attached to the outcome of death. So you've got two problematic things right there, and you're doing it to yourself. The news of the world of dying and the news of the world of the virus is that. It's that fact. But every time you focus on that, you're drawing yourself to that negative energy space, and you wonder why your life is unhappy or something, or you're sheltering in place, and it's not a pleasurable experience of having the freedom to relearn some creativity in this time, because we've oddly been sent home by the parents, so to speak, and everything's going to be okay. Just stay at home. We'll take care of it. Well, if that's the case, that's where you get that creativity out and find out what you loved about life when you had that time. And then maybe during this time, keeping those things. Those kinds of spaces are positive spaces to be looking at. That's positive experience. Those involve love, which is that love is extremely powerful to cultivate the energy for your personal power. If you do loving things that you love, like say you used to read Lord of the Rings and you want to reread it. It's a very basic example, but you're doing something you love, even though the world's still happening. Death could happen, but you already knew that. Now you know it's more pending and more pertinent perhaps, but do you need to know more, or can you now refine that creativity you once had? And then maybe go out and hang out here and pretend you're looking for orcs. Whatever, but do something to lift your spirits. Those are fabricated positive experiences that you can just create. You can create that. You have the ability to do that in you. That part is what's been drummed out of most of us in the social conditioning process that happens between the time you first get aware, around 3, up until about 18, when you're told what morality is, what right and wrong is, and all these arbitrary points that are fixed on some space that is dependent upon the local conditions of the population and religious factors. Not saying any of those are right or wrong, because nothing is truly right or wrong. There's only levels of rightness, It's like with light. You don't add darkness to light, you have less light. This whole notion, this duality notion, this Newtonian notion of right and wrong and good and bad and light and dark, duality is, it's limiting, but we do live in a linear world. We have to agree that yesterday was this thing we call the past, linear thought. We live in a linear world, and we need that for communication and stuff, but that doesn't mean we have to stay there. And so when we start thinking in those nonlinear terms, now we start to see how these other little things, like our attachment to little things like needing to know more about what we already know, especially if it's bad, reaffirming in our head this thing that we're attached to, that it's going to go bad. Oh my God, I gotta run, I need to be saved. And even right there, we have another line. Why do you need to be saved? Where's your personal power? Why does somebody have to save you? When did you give over the keys to control your life? And why? And why are you still doing that? These are questions you can consider now too. When we re-engage society after this on a more open and free basis, are we going to jump right back into the same thing that we were all bitching about 2 months ago? Yeah, we had 2020 arrive and everybody's like, yeah, everything's going to be great. And things are always getting better. They have the possibility to get better in any moment, depending on our choices. Now you have time for some choices that don't attach you to that predetermined outcome of the socially conditioned American or Venezuelan or Iraqi or wherever you are in the world. You're you. You're a human. We're all that. What can we do in our world? Because this is our world too. It's just as much my world as these plants or any other person. So with that in mind, you have all the control of what you do right now. Do you need to be fascinated and stuck on this negative energy out there in the world? You're not bypassing reality here by not paying attention to it. You can be informed, you can be cautious, but you don't have to be paranoid. You don't have to be attached to a truth that is dependent upon being saved by some government or some whatever. You have to be able to at least believe that you can save yourself. That doesn't mean I can jump in, well, if I wanted to, I could jump in shark-infested waters. I have that choice. Hopefully I would survive that and learn not to do it again. That would be a positive experience, positive growth out of a negative choice. Hey, I've got a low battery, so I don't know what this is gonna mean. Says 20%. But, so, I think I've made my point there. So when we talk about power and force, we've talked a lot about negative, and that's force, that's law. Yeah, that might sound harsh. I'm not saying that we all need to run around and be able to do what we want to do. Exactly. I mean, yes, it'd be great if everybody did that and they had a fundamentally good mindset and we could all do that and depend on everybody else to do that. That'd be wonderful. But, we're human animals, so we have different emotions, different beliefs. And how we arrive at those beliefs come during that social conditioning process. When you're told at a very young age, this is light and this is dark, this is right and this is wrong, this is God and this is the devil. That's a biggie. That's a huge one because most people can't get past that. They cannot question that. And I'm not trying to tell anybody to not believe in your religion. That's totally you. And it's real for you and your reality. But your reality is yours. We all have the common reality, the collective reality of the human species that features all of these things. This world around us that we are a part of. And with that in mind, we are all fully able to access all of it. So all of the positive experience of life and love of Earth is available to all of us if we just open to it in that way and not shut ourselves down by creating blocks. That's a block right there of that energy. I mean, so what we're doing when we get fascinated on that low place, we block ourselves to the above stuff because we do not believe it's real in our reality. I need to be saved. I do not call my own shots when it comes to certain things. There are some things in the world that are decided for me and there's nothing I can do. Negative. You need to believe in yourself. You need to believe that you can do it, and then make the choice. And even if it's a less than stellar move, if it didn't go as good as you thought, at least you made it for you. And then what you do is you take that and you learn from it, and not do that again. How do I change? How do I evolve? Or do I just go back and seeing and knowing and doing over and over and over? So I'm just looking at some comments now. Anyway, so the gist of that is, you have all these people all over the place, and thank you to all the online counselors in the drug and alcohol community, of which I used to be associated as a counselor, for now joining us in cyberspace. It's this new thing. It came out about like 30 years ago. It's great. A lot of people dig it. But so welcome aboard. And there's so many people on Facebook, like myself, who have varying levels of what they do with people. And in my work at Wind and Raven, I'll have my little plug here. Not that I intended to, but I mentioned it. This is the kind of dynamics that I work with in problem solving, you could say, of reinventing your life. And I do mean that fully, as was my case, which I had a seminal moment of being diagnosed with terminal disease that then only went on for years, to where I had less problem detaching from the social conditioning simply because I was removed from it for 8 years and isolated myself in this reality that I was going to live despite this horrible news that everybody was telling me. I never believed that. That's when I told them I didn't buy their myth of death. I was pretty bold about that and refused. And so I sort of went up here to my higher self and stayed there for 8 years. And when I came back, not a lot of that other stuff was left. So I was able to rebuild pretty clear, could say. So I don't suggest that route for most people. You know, liver failure and transplant and cancer is not the best trip down the road you can have. But whatever you have, even if you have that, even if your leg got shot off in Iraq, even if you've got mast cell disease, I think, is that the word? Regardless, if your husband just left you, if your wife's cheating on you, whatever, that's out there. That's what they say. That's their energy. And yes, it might not be comfortable. Nobody likes to be told they have 6 months to live for 8 years. Nobody likes to have these diseases. Nobody likes their wife or whatever to cheat on them, or their husband to do whatever, and their asshole boss. There, I swore. Sorry, Facebook. Jail time. But you are 50% of every spot you're at because you walked right up to it. You cannot deny that you walked into every situation because you have the choice not to. And that might sound really hard, and there are times when people are literally confined. I get it. That's harder, but it still can be done. It's all in the way you choose to process it in you. Can you find the positive expression of life out there? Can you go towards that and let that energy fill you? Positive energy, raising your consciousness, right? Or do you bitch about it? Do you give up? Do you throw in the towel? Do you pray to be saved? I'm not saying that in a religious context. I don't want to. I mean, praying is a very beautiful thing for people to do. In fact, anything you do to heal is good, so long as it's not the expense of others. Except for paying for online counseling. I'm kidding. But anyway, it's all in what you choose to get attached to. And even in your own life, am I attached to the fact that my life sucks? Well, I might not have any money. My car might be broke down. My wife just left me. My dog puked in the carpet. I mean, all these things. Yes, that is not fun. But does it change me? Or does it change my attitude towards being me? Am I now no longer worth it? Am I not worth just feeling good about just that much of it? At least I'm here. I made it. I woke up. I have the choice of what to do next, always, despite what some people might try to limit, or whatever exists in you from your social conditioning and the ongoing political machine that is a series of force to keep you in place. Yes, laws do matter, and some it's not good to just go out and kill somebody. I get it. I'm not saying that. But there's no doubt about it. All politics is force. The power of the United States comes from the phrasings in the Declaration of Independence. For the first time ever, all men are created equal. If you throw out the fact that it's just a man for a second and stay on the fact that they're saying basically that all people are created equal, that was a hugely, highly conscious statement to be made at the time it was. Abraham Lincoln, and the way that he spoke with power and love towards everybody. He even had sympathy for the rebel army, as opposed to using force and calling them names and fighting them to defeat them instead of fighting them to rejoin them, say with Lincoln. And of course, fighting for freedom in the way that went on with those declarations that formed the power of America there. That's the power. What you're seeing now in military force and other forces such as legislation and all that are just ways to keep other people beholding to what whoever says up top says, because they can do that because they have that force. That's why they call it the armed forces. You know, it's negative energy. It is. There's no upside in killing other people, regardless of why you say it. It's not. It doesn't matter because see, they're not a bad guy to them. So how can they be bad? Totally. You're again 50% of that equation, but you chose to make the ruling. You judged them to life be over. So, yes, I'm a veteran and I'm an infantryman. Yeah, that's right there, the forward face of U.S. foreign policy, as we call ourselves. But that was a younger time in my life, and that's what I was into then, and that's fine. A lot of people do that and they choose to serve, and I'm glad they do. I'm glad we have them now because of the world we've created, that now that's somehow necessary. And that's the part I'm talking about with the system. Those kinds of mindsets. Are we going to go right back into that, or are we going to remember now that maybe the U.S. Navy had these two wonderful warships that are war hospital ships? What an oxymoron. Or I guess they're ensuring future business. But anyway, these ships, you know, they're helping the civilians. something that technically usually is not done, the military actually being deployed in the United States. And that's great. There's so much of that going on. There's a lot of positive things going on. President Trump has had positive moments in the way that he's spoken, sometimes taking a little too far with his positivity on a cure, which is fundamentally good to believe that, yes, we're going to get out of here. But then, as usual, our political machine comes into play, and then we start seeing both sides using force. And then we lose the part where we're trying to all get through this together, and we get back to why we should be apart. Again, force. Right? Both sides do it equally, regardless of how they say it. But if you look at the quantum mechanics of it, that's what's going on. So, anyway, let's see. Perception is what I want to say. I'm going to look and see what we have here. Any questions? Tina says the liminal space of giving us to make new choices. Precisely. I'll go into that a little bit from the last Raven in a Cage from day 9. That's exactly what, and I talked a lot about this already. Do we use this time right now to remember that part of us that experienced joy earlier in life? Like, take for instance, go back to that 4th of July or whatever picnic you were at when you were 12 in the park and you found the 4-leaf clover. And you remember that, right? You remember that. Well, you can't go back to that. It's in this thing we call the past, right? And you're never going to repeat that. So that can't happen, but how do we get that joy back? Well, how do we feel in those days? What were the things that really lit us up in life? You know, what do you remember? What were your hobbies? What were your other things? And then if you can feel that in the time that it was felt, like how much you loved getting the new Thor comic book when you were 13, life story. How that made you feel. And then find something in your life that maybe you could put a little of that on and then love into it a little more. Do that. Allow yourself the time to be a kid, whatever that is. It's sometimes said in a negative way. Really. You mean the part before we were socially conditioned, that part? When we had a thing called common sense that we pretty much all agreed on certain things as far as fun and what was exciting and unlimited liberal behavior as far as creativity goes, where we could take paint and just put it on our face and everybody thought it was funny, and today you do it and you're off to a shrink, you know? So, and again, how much of that do we want to get back to? How much do we want to get back to going and seeing the shrink at the office? If you do. And if you do, great, you're doing something. That's a positive step. Hopefully that person is, you know, what you need. So, anyway, I'm trying to see, make those new choices. Anything else there? Beautifully present without judgment. Definitely, that's the thing. Be here now, completely, open to everything. Don't judge it. Don't see and know and do all the time. Be present in it and just engage with that part of you that lights you up. That's not bypassing the stuff that doesn't. You don't have to not brush your teeth forever and hope to not get a cavity. You have to have some sense of, if you identify that you don't want a cavity, you need to keep up with that. You know, that's that whole master of time and space thing that we talk about in masculine. You know, do you do the things that are necessary to create that container, that space where it's safe, where you know where you have your stuff so you can be free, right? Masculine heart desiring freedom, master of time and space. You have to be free by knowing everything's taken care of. Then there comes that feminine energy in with love, 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 love. And that's the part now. You have that. Inherently, all of us with our own internal masculine and feminine, now we're switching gears, you have that right now, an opportunity in your own life to demonstrate it by saying, okay, these are the things I need to do. I need to get the gloves. I need to, okay, at 5 o'clock, I'll just watch the first 5 minutes of the briefing and then I'm out of here when I get some basic news, whatever, or not. Do I have food? Of course, prepare for the toilet paper apocalypse. What an odd thing that's what we're gonna remember about this time. Toilet paper, let that sink in. But anyway, do you do all those things? Do you have it all taken care of? Are you a master of your time and space? Okay, it's 8 o'clock, this and that and your thing. Yes, I took a bath every whatever day it is, you know, or every day, however you do that. And then once that's done, which you can do now relatively easy because we don't have a lot of responsibilities, is then to let yourself sink into that feminine nature that we have, that love, 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 love. That how did it feel looking at that 4-leaf clover back there when I was 10 years old, you know, things like that. Or how exciting was it when I used to catch a fish with Grandpa by the creek, or whatever, you know. Try to let that part back out, especially you men out there. You know, men that think, I'm not going to say men that think, 'cause I don't want a blanket statement like that, and probably nobody, very few watching this are in this dynamic. But the notion that masculine is like, you know, Rambo. Yeah, right, exactly. But no, not at all. And so it's more of, like I was talking about, having your shit together, basically. Are you clear in yourself? Are you clear all around? Do you have any baggage? Are you master of your time and space up here in the world, you know, and all that shit? Are you safe? Can you provide a safe container for that feminine love? Can you do that? This is a time to find out in yourself if you can even allow that in your own self. Can you even entertain the notion of saying, I'm going to spend today, I'm going to get ready until 10 o'clock. And then at 10 o'clock, I'm going to not worry about the time. I'm just going to love, 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 love all afternoon. I'm going to sit outside on the back porch and have a banana and stare at the birds, or whatever it is you like to do. Just do that. And know roughly around 3 you're going to come in. And then you come in at 3. If you just had your feminine time, come in at 3, then you remember, oh my God, you know, maybe I need to put the clothes in the dryer. Maybe I need to get dinner ready, or whatever. Get that sort of master of time and space part back out. And maybe actively sink in and out of those. Get used to that dynamic, and then you can find that easier when you're out there in the world, when it comes to you assuming that role in a relationship. And this is not men only I'm speaking about here. That internal thing is uniform through everybody. And so too is the masculine and feminine, as far as that's not gender specific. That's just a role thing in the sort of flow of energy there. Or something like that. There's plenty of people out there who can tell you all about it. So, that's about it, I think. Hi, Steve. I'm glad to watch this. I'm glad, Jeannie, you're watching this too. But I think it's about over. I don't know how long it's gone. And so anyway, this was exciting. A little nervous energy, of course. I tend to go off in various directions. That's the nature of my work. You know, what some counselors call rabbit holes, I call opportunity. I follow the energy. Because usually when we go down those paths is where we find the answers that simply are not found other places. Because we don't allow ourselves to go there. We are closed off to that. We call it a rabbit hole, when in fact that was something maybe rising that we need to follow. And there's where we find the person seeking it finds healing. Simply in illuminating it like that. And talking about these flows of energy, such as power and force, and of course this masculine-feminine dynamic at its base level, as like John Wineland talks about, just that base level of masculine heart freedom, feminine heart love, and then knowing a little bit about what I said there, and of course, head over to him. He's top dog there, you could say. So anyway, that's it. I'm done. I'm going to try to turn this off, so it's probably going to be a little bit of a shaky ending here. Who knows? See, I'm getting attached to the outcome now, so I won't stay in that negative phase. I'll walk my own walk. I've been on for a half hour. I said I'd come on at 1. That's the church over there, where there's no people, but they do have a steeple. So all is good in Athens, Georgia, which is over there a few miles. You can't hear it. The bypass going around the city now is almost silent. You can hear a little bit out on Macon Highway, but nothing like usual, which is good, because if you don't need to be outside, you shouldn't be. Out of respect for those who believe these things are as bad as they could be for them, it's not good for us to add that layer of the news constantly telling us about who's not doing it. We know people aren't doing it. We don't have to sit around and bitch about that either. Do what you can do for you. Make your own choices yourself. And then after this time is over, remember that time when you had your feminine come out, or maybe you're working on the other side. Everything could have been reversed there. You could have maybe all day long you're in the feminine and you never get anything really accomplished. And I don't mean that in the way that it sounds as far as abrasive towards the feminine. I mean that in that dynamic of love and feminine and freedom and the freedom with the masculine then coming from a position of the master of time and space. In there's sort of accountability, you could say, to yourself to provide that safety for freedom. Because if you don't have your shit together, you're really not free, because you're attached to these worries that you might have. That's what I mean by that. And if you don't have that in your life, if you can't get it together on whatever it is, you can think of it like that too. Set aside the time when you're going to say, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to find out the exact date, time, website, phone number, book, whatever that I need to take a step forward. And during that, and then I'm going to proceed to that step for X amount of time. Practice it just like that if you like. You have all the time in the world for that right now. We can really use this time to cultivate all of these things in us. And it would be unfortunate if we were to lose such a moment in the human experience for all of us to have this time at the same time, thinking of the same kinds of things. Imagine how little bitty incremental changes like that might change things when we go back if we don't re-engage at the same consciousness level that we entered it in. This sort of negative conscious sphere that encompasses most of society in the attachment to these negative things, you know. So that's about that, and that's all I got. So if you like this, comment. I'll definitely do another one if there's any of that. I don't know. Maybe I'll do another one anyway. Who would I care? I'm not out to please. As far as accountable, I'm not accountable to anyone, just myself. So anyway, thanks for watching. Bye. And I'll try to turn it off. I don't know how.